let's see, what else do we have? Oh, Jem on the blog had made a comment. His was wowed by my industrial and the price I got, and he also made the comment that for gears they should be greased, not just oiled with sewing machine oil. And I know that, and I just had been a little bit lazy about picking up the grease and doing it because I don't have grease lying around the house usually. So I went to Walmart, of course, and bought multi-duty complex high temp grease, and I greased up all of my sewing machines. You would put grease on where gears come together. A lot of times sewing machines will have a little, if you look underneath, if it's a mechanical machine, there'll be like a little access cover over kind of more in the bobbin area, and if you pop that off, you'll see that that's an area that is greased. So I greased up all three of my sewing machines, and my sewing room smelled like a mechanic's garage for a couple days, and either the smell dissipated or I got used to the way it smelled. I'm not sure which. So, Jem, I did grease up the sewing machines, and I really can't tell the difference if they're running any better or not, but I definitely have more peace of mind. So, that's good. Let's see, what else do we have here? Sewing. This week's sewing projects. It's not just all about thrift shopping here on Brian Sews. We actually do some sewing. I did 2 pairs of jeans this week. The first pair, I haven't sewn any jeans probably since the last pair of jeans I have put together were the ones I won the ready to wear contest on Pattern Review. So that's been it's been at least a month, if not more than a month. And I find that when I'm sewing a project, even though it's a project that I know and I don't have to look at the instructions, the first garment or the first thing that comes out of the sewing machine is not the best. Usually I have to remember a few things, and you don't have your sewing fingers aren't quite put together for that specific project yet. I find that if I want to make something really well, I'll make the best one I make is usually the last one I make. So for jeans, the first pair that I've made in a while, it turns out they turn out fine. The problem is just that it takes you, instead of taking 8 hours, it might have taken 12 hours because I sewed the leg seams backwards, and there was a few mistakes. The waistband was giving me problems. I was reminded again also with this pair of jeans, I used this fabric I got on clearance at Joann's. I think I got this denim for like $2.25 a yard, so I was like, oh, I feel like using that, because I usually sew with very dark denim, and I felt this was a kind of a pre-washed, faded, I don't know if we'd call it stone wash, but this is the color I bought it as. And I was reminded again why I like to sew with raw denim that hasn't been washed yet, either by the factory or by you, because it takes a crease so much better. This denim was soft from being pre-washed at the factory, and it was just a struggle to sew with. I should have taken the yardage outside and sprayed it down with my heavy spray starch and let it dry and really stiffened it up. But again, it was my first pair and I wasn't really thinking about that. I was just kind of thinking about sewing, and I didn't rush into it, but I didn't really think about stuff like that. I had forgotten that I like stiff denim. So the first pair turned out fine. I put a little orange tab on the back pocket because I thought that'd be interesting, and there was a few things that I learned about this. And then Peter, my sewing friend in New York, finished his first pair of jeans this last week, and he did a great job, and I was really impressed with his abilities. He's a beginner sewer. A lot of people think he should move up to advanced beginner, but really, if you're still working on it's his first pair of pants, he's a beginner still. Regardless of how good a beginner he is still a beginner. And he did a great job on this pair of jeans. He used a vintage simplicity pattern. The pattern, wasn't originally a jeans pattern, although it said you could use denim. It wasn't specifically designed to be jeans. And I really liked that the style of jeans he got out of this pattern was unique, and I thought they were great, and I'll show you some pictures of what his jeans look like. What was important to me is that my hardest, when I'm sewing a pair of jeans, the hardest part for me is what they refer to it as the J seam. It's the seam that runs from under the zipper here all the way about round, up the center back, to the waistband or to the yoke. And this seam right here has always given me just enormous difficulty, especially where it comes up and intersects the fly opening. And I think this was caused by the original pattern I learned how to sew jeans on was a quick sew pattern. It's a quick sew jeans pattern. There's not very many jeans patterns available for men, so it's one of the main choices. The instructions are great, and the way you sew that seam on the quick sew pattern is you do the whole thing where you take one leg out and you put one leg inside the other. Let me just do it here for you so you can. Of course, I did it backwards. Let me turn this around here. You put one leg inside the other, which allows you access to that seam. Well, that's great. The problem is that it's this curved seam, which makes it, here you go, you can see. So when you put one leg inside the other, you have access. This is that seam right here. You can see there's a little bit of some fuzz sticking out here. So this is that J seam here. Well, it's also on a curve now. Plus you're kind of fighting with these legs together, and it just always seemed like the right way to do it, but it has never worked out very well for me. Well, I mentioned that was a hard spot for me, and Peter seemed to just breeze through it. And I was like, who is this guy to be sewing his first pair of jeans, and he didn't even have any problem with, the part that I find most challenging. Like, I will not sew, the only time I'll sew this seam is first thing in the morning when I'm fresh, and, I take my time, and it might take me an hour just to get this looking the way I want it to look. And he mentioned, and I didn't really think about it until I sewed my next pair of jeans, which is the ones I just, turned inside out here. He mentioned that instead of sewing, my procedure is I sew both legs separately, so I end up with two tubes that I then intersect at the top with the J-seam. Well, Peter mentioned that instead of doing it that way, he sewed, the inside leg seam, flat felled that, and then he sewed the J-seam. So you had more or less two flat panels of leg that you sewed together the J-seam, and then he sewed together the outside leg seam. And he said that. It didn't really click to me how that would make it any easier. Well, on my next pair of jeans, which were these jeans here, I did that. I thought, well, if Peter did it, why? Sure, I'll try that. It can't be any harder than what I'm already doing. Well, it made a world of difference. I just breezed right through that. The intersection here where it intersected the zipper area just came together beautifully. Everything about this pair of jeans went together so much nicer. And I have to thank Peter for that. It took a beginner just looking at it and not thinking there was a proper way to do it, just doing it, and coming up with a solution that he didn't even know he came up with. And I hope when he watches this, he'll get a little kick out of seeing me. I'm extremely grateful to him, because this has made sewing jeans. I don't ever have to worry about coming to that part. So I had made my standard pair of jeans, and this is, I've been really trying to copy, Levi's lately. Well, I think I've done that. I've got the Levi copy down pretty much. So I realized that Levi's jeans are kind of boring. So what I did, I saw a pair of jeans that really inspired me. I just saw them and I said, wow, I just need to do something more like that. Like, I haven't really been looking at jean styles lately, because I've just been kind of absorbed in sewing. I haven't really looked around me. This pair of jeans